By 988, Rome, Phrygia, and Gujarat had re-solidified their positions as major powers, putting down various civil wars and even expanding the limits of their territory. On a smaller scale, this happened in Avarignia also, vassalizing neighboring counts of the Iberic faith, imposing on neighboring powers too weak to oppose them. This, of course, brought a fair amount of ill will against Archon Avarignius, though he felt these gains outweighed the price. In 990, two notable wars broke out, with Norland's invasion of Hibernia and Angland's invasion of Gallia, primarily targeting Avarignia and Anjou. In 994, Rome conquered the rebellious Sardinian splinter house, meaning that Rome had now gained a foothold on the Iberian Peninsula, potentially spelling trouble for Avarignia further on down the line. That same year, Archon Avarignius developed cancer, only surviving through the amputation of his left leg, crippling him. To celebrate his recovery, the Archon launched 4 separate wars against Barcelona, Girona, Catalunya, and Andalusia. In an ironic twist of fate, he would die in 996 of a resurgent cancer at the age of 49. As such, an election was held, and Archon Galba Indicitus was chosen to lead the 213th Senate of the Athraeum in its rule of Avarignia. In 1000, Andalusia was knocked out of the war, followed by Barcelona and Girona in 1001, giving Avarignia more direct access to the Mediterranean. Archon Galba and his glory in combat became well known. In July of that year, Rome conquered the rising Kingdom of England, including its holdings in the far north. Beginning in 1004, having noticed his exploits on the field of battle, Imperator Timaeus Andenid of the Roman Empire began to exchange letters with Archon Galba, discussing the situation of Roman lands in southern Iberia. In 1115, the Carthaginian successor state of Anbia began to make headway through the Sahara, adopting the megalithic faith from their subjects. They found themselves rivals to the tribal kingdom of Ghana to the south, which sought to defend sub-Saharan Africa and their local faiths from foreign incursion coming through the Sahara. In 1007, a minor peasant revolt was put down in the east of Avarignia, near where the new lands were conquered. In September of 1010, in order to placate his more powerful vassals with a show of force, Archon Galba conquered the Duchy of Molina in a single week. In 1013, Archon Galba fell in love with the daughter of one of his courtiers, Fleur, and arranged to marry her. Though he was impatient for her to be his wife, so he stole her away in the night and eloped. The two were meant for each other, and she enthusiastically took up her role as his wife. However, her father, Goron Butagol, a major duke, was enraged, and rose his flag in rebellion. This would last 3 bloody years, and ultimately result in his death at the hand of Archon Galba. During that war, him and Fleur had 3 children. Meanwhile, to the east, a new dynasty took control of Gujarat, transforming it into Rajasthan, translating to the Land of Kings. To the south, the kingdom of Anbia converted to the Canaanite faith, those gods of their fathers, and became the kingdom of Tehert. Though, of course, most of these subjects remained of the megalithic faith. In 1017, Rome began a massive campaign northwards, conquering most of Finland and waging war on Norland, their only obstacle to absolute dominance in the region. In March of 1018, the Kingdom of England broke away from Rome under the leadership of a great king, Grimur Ingjaldsson, who was famed for sacrificing the local Roman governor to Odin. The All-Father showed him favor when Rome's war against Norland dragged into a frigid northern winter. This was the first time in centuries the talons of the eagle had been denied its prey. Indeed, Imperator Timaeus II was not going to take this lightly, banning the worship of the Asatru gods throughout the empire. In 1017, in yet another display of his martial prowess, the Archon, who was now called Archon Galba the Conqueror, endeavored to conquer what was left of Andalusia, as well as invading the minor holding that England had taken from Rome during its Great Revolt. By 1020, Andalusia was no more, but England had rebuffed the Republic to such a degree that Archon Galba was forced to settle for a white peace. The Archon then took to drinking, bringing great damage to his body. In 1026, he died as a result of his heavy drinking at the age of 53. As such, an election was held, and Archon Masselio Isherbellus was chosen to lead the 219th Senate of the Ephraim in its rule of Avarignia. Masselio was an odd choice for no other reason than his age. He was a boy of 9. Technically, there wasn't anything against this, but it was unorthodox. The Ephraim thought so highly of Galba that they well and truly wanted his son at the helm of the Republic, hoping that Galba's skill in war and administration ran in his blood. A scant few months into his rule, a pretender to the throne of Andalusia, which was under his possession, roused a force of thousands against the Republic, even convincing some of her fellow Punic vassals to join this cause beneath her banner. Beneath the banner of Queen Dido Cusair Igmin, cousin of the late king of Andalusia. Archon Masselio, panicked and hounded by dozens of advisors and generals, tried to remember the wisdom of his father. First, he dumped over half the treasury on mercenaries, combining with the armies of the Republic to number around 14,000 to match Queen Dido's 10,000. However, even with this overwhelming force, they suffered from attrition and starvation, and the first 3 major battles were lost against her organized armies. Taking advantage of the chaos, the Duchy of Iceland joined in on this war against Avarignia in 1028. Later that same year, Connacht was swayed by Iceland to support their invasion. In 1029, the minority of Punic Canaanites, descendants of the Carthaginians, rose their flag in revolt and joined Queen Dido in her cause. The small army they put forward was soon defeated, but this did not deter her. By September of 1030, Iceland won its war against Avarignia, taking the county of Asturias de Oviedo as its prize. This prompted wars from yet more vassals, one who wished for the destruction of the Republic in favor of a noble council. In a stroke of historic irony, the Indicidi family and the Caridi family were on the same side in this war, defending the Republic together. However, despite these noble efforts, in 1031 Queen Dido claimed her prize, and Andalusia was once again a sovereign realm. Archon Masselio was only just able to fend off Connacht and the rebellious nobility, though that amounted for naught in the face of such a devastating defeat. So this is how the Archon grew up, surrounded by war, guilt, death, and disappointment. And yet, he was able to sway the Ephraim to keep him in his position in the interests of avoiding another succession crisis, making his case at the age of 13. He then set about fabricating claims against every county in Andalusia, an endeavor which would take a great many brooding years. The Andalusians were Canaanites, meaning they worshipped those ancient gods of the Carthaginians, and thus they engaged in human sacrifice, though these spilled blood in a quantity unknown to their forefathers, simply to enrage the neighboring Iberic faithful, who view the practice as abominable. The Iberic faith was then forbidden, and Avarignian families were made their main source of ritual sacrifice. All of this shaped Masselio, embittered and enraged him, driving him to the edge of sanity with wrath and shame. And so the years passed, quietly fabricating claims and researching into distant familial ties or tribal laws, all to set Andalusia up for conquest, claim by claim. This went on for 21 years until, finally in 1052, the 35-year-old Archon Masselio Isherbellus was finally ready for his conquest. Some developments had occurred during that time, like how Iceland had expanded its holdings, or how Seville rebelled against Rome and found itself nearly engulfed by Andalusia. Further afield, Rome had nearly conquered all of the Gallic region, while Phrygia finally tamed the Balkans. All these grand developments, and Masselio noticed not a single one of them. On the 1st of November, 1052, Avarignia declared war upon Andalusia, and its feared Queen Dido, called the Flare. 5,000 men were raised from the Republic's bravest men, followed by 15,000 hired blades. 7,000 men sailed around their southern coast and invaded Granada, while 8,000 marched on the capital itself, Cordoba. The Andalusians were caught off guard, shocked that their northern neighbor had sought retribution with such a singular mind, and horrified that they were unable to hire any local mercenaries. Soon enough, after the fall of city after city, Andalusia's desperate and traitorous vassals rose up in 4 separate rebellions against their queen. As such, on the 1st of October 1054, Andalusia was annexed, Queen Dido beheaded, and the title destroyed, its counties divided up between more loyal vassals. After the fact, this conflict would come to be known as the War of Return. A return of territory, a return with fanfare, a return to glory. Of course, Archon Masselia would make use of this momentum, conquering the Icelandic exclaves, Norlandic exclaves, Faga, Barcelona, and Seville between 1054 and 1063, claiming the Iberian Peninsula for Avarignia and Avarignia alone. For this, the Archon was called Archon Masselio the Great, for achieving that ancient goal, envisioned by his furthest ancestor Similchi upon those very shores. Archon Masselio the Great was 46 by then, and was finally able to rest easy, focusing on the rebuilding of his realm and development of his more recent acquisition. Thus, his glory widely known, he would preside over an age of peace.